Started. So I would ask you a couple of things. First of all, we will start with the prayer. I'll then start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please turn on your microphones. Just leave them on, because if we don't speak into them, it doesn't record, and so those that are trying to catch up later, they don't get to hear your comments, and all of you make great comments, so we appreciate that. So if you give me just a second, we'll say a blessing, and then we'll get forward. Father in heaven, we're thankful for this day, and we're thankful for each member of this committee and all those that are here interested in proving and blessing the lives of Hannibal. We ask you to please bless us that we may be guided by thy Spirit in doing so. And we ask you to please bless this state and this nation. This we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. We stand for the pledge. Jay, can I ask you to please lead us in that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to kind of jump right into it. What I would propose is that I'm going to kind of turn the time over to our attorney. There were several to-do items and things that we'd asked. I have passed that to him. And if you look at our talking points, he's going to go through almost all of those things and kind of line us out to be able to answer questions, and then we're going to turn it over to you. And we'll go around the room, make sure everybody has your questions, comments, ideas, whatever we need to do. And we'll go to that point, if that's all right and acceptable to anybody. Anybody who doesn't want to do that, speak or forever hold your peace. All right, this is Alex Riley. We're turning it over to him.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for the good questions that came about at the last meeting. I'm sorry I wasn't here, but I did go back and watch the meeting just to get back up to speed, and appreciated the good discussion and the number of questions. So on the agenda here that Darren put together, these are sort of the outstanding issues that I've been asked to take a look at and to provide some insight. So we've talked quite a bit about the sales tax option already, about whether that would be a viable option to use here. And as we've discussed in the past, and as you've seen from my prior memo that's been circulated, that is not an option for us here, since the city of Hannibal has pretty well tapped out the various sales tax options for other uses as allowed under Missouri law. So we'll dive into now the questions that came out of the last meeting. So there were a few options that were tossed out about whether this is something that would potentially work. So there was the discussion over the franchise fee, personal property tax, and real property tax. So those were sort of three other options that were tossed out as an alternative to the impervious area tax that we're looking at. And I think there is some degree of consensus that might be a good way to go. But in any event, to make sure that we had closed out every possible option, I took a deep dive into the law to see if these would be viable or not. And the short answer is I don't believe they are. The reason for that is there doesn't appear to be any clear legal precedent authorizing these types of options. That doesn't mean that it would be 100% illegal if we went that route, just that there's no clear legal guidance that, yes, this is okay, and here's how you do it. So the risk then is, if we were to go this route and sort of chart our own course without clear legal precedent, that if we did end up in a court challenge to this tax in the event we put it on the ballot and are successful, then when the court challenge is brought, we would not have anything to say, well, Judge, here's what we've based this option on. And that's a pretty big risk. I don't know that's certainly not something that I would be comfortable recommending. I think we want to make sure that if we are able to put something on the ballot, that it will stick, and we won't have a court toss it out after we go through what will be probably a difficult election process and everything else that is involved with that. One other note, so specifically on the personal property tax item and the real property tax item, we talked a little bit about this in our first meeting, but just to remind everyone, so in addition to my role as an attorney, I'm also a member of the Missouri legislature. And there's been a lot of interest over the past couple years with making some real reforms, if not completely eliminating the personal property tax and real property tax. So we wouldn't want to tie a stormwater tax to either of those options because there is a lot of political appetite to make some reforms or changes to those at the state level. So it would be, for lack of a better term, just a real big bummer if we were to, again, go through this election process and win and then ultimately have the legislature do something where they either do away with the tax or reform it in such a way that it doesn't really help us accomplish what we're trying to do here. So those are a couple of concerns I have with any of those options. The other is there's just no real guidance in the law about how we would go about that. So we would have to pretty well put an option together from scratch, and that comes with a lot of risk as well, both legal and political, and certainly logistical about how we would make the math work. So that's where things stand on franchise fee, the personal property tax, and the real property tax. One other item on the franchise fee increase is, as I recall from our discussion or from your discussion at the last meeting, that would only raise about $1 million, maybe a little over. So that wouldn't get us to the $4 million that we need. So we would have to do 2 ballot questions most likely, and that would come with a high degree of risk too, because I find it a little difficult to fathom a situation where the people here would vote to tax themselves twice. I think that it would be a pretty complicated process and situation to explain to the average citizen who isn't necessarily going to want to spend a ton of time thinking about it. They're not going to spend the hours doing the research that you all have done. So we want to try and make it as easy to understand as we can. And I think if we have 2 questions on the ballot that are going different routes, that could cause some confusion with your average voter. Okay, so we'll jump now to some potential ballot language. So I think you would... Yeah.
One question.
Sure.
Before you move forward, on the information that was sent out under the first.
Would you
question,
hand him a microphone? I'm sorry, Carl. We're gonna make you record it, okay?
Under the first question on non-exempt, can you clarify section 4 where it says real estate and tangible personal property, which is used exclusively for agriculture and horticultural societies organized in the state? Does that mean that the society or any property that's agriculture or horticulture?
I think that would be, I'm trying to think of an example. None's jumping into mind, but that would be like some sort of specific organization.
Okay, it would be a 501, some
Yeah.
kind of situation like that.
Right. It wouldn't be your average Joe farmer.
Okay.
If that's the question.
All right, yeah, that's the question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts on those items before we?
So just so I'm clear, you're saying we can't do the franchise fee because it's never been done before? Is that
So
what-
I'm saying it would come with a lot of risk because I'm not seeing any clear legal precedent that says that where we have a statute or a court case that says it's okay. So we
But
don't.
We have franchise fees,
Yes,
and what
but
are those for?
so we don't. What we don't have is a scenario like what we're talking about here, where we're talking about increasing the franchise fee and then having the city send money back for stormwater improvements. That's what we don't have clear. That's what I haven't been able to find clear precedent for.
Right now, what our franchise fee is, every sale that we make, we take 5.5% of that and we give that to the city, and it goes into the city's general fund, I believe. And so that's something that we we give for water, sewer, electric, everything we collect, they get 5.5%. So I believe what we would do is again, the idea was that we would take and increase that to 9.5%. We would still give the 5.5%, we'd give that entire 9.5% to the city. The city would then take the other 3.5% that we added out of, got bad math, the other 4%, the other 4% would then come back to us to do the funding for the stormwater.
So does all of the franchise fee that you collect on the utilities go to the city?
Yes,
All of it?
yes,
The board gets none of the franchise fees?
correct.
Your bill is the mechanism for the city to be able to collect
Correct.
franchise?
And I believe that they also collect from Liberty and from the other electric, no? I thought it was 5%.
Liberty certainly.
Yeah, Liberty now, they just worked that out. They're paying 5% and it's for the right to be in the roads
Well, but
for that.
I didn't know, what I'm trying to clear in my mind is, it's on the board's utility bill, but none of the franchise fees on the utilities bill currently, it goes to the board's budget. It goes to the general fund of the city.
Yes, that is an expense for us.
Okay.
I don't know where this fits in, but I wasn't here last meeting, but I did watch the video and stuff. And I know 90% of the people picked the impervious property, which I'm one that didn't pick it because I have 71,000 square feet of impervious property on my land, and I'm going to pay $5,400 a year for, and Michelle was talking about hers, she's going to pay $250 or something a year. I don't think it's fair to me, and I'm not the only one. I'm probably one of the few that's got a large property with several buildings and a lot of gravel. This ain't even counting the gravel roads that I go down to feed my cattle on. So you're asking me, and I hate to be just,
Is all that inside city limits?
pardon me?
Is all that inside city limits?
Yeah,
Oh, it is, okay. I didn't know.
yeah, everything's in the city limits. But what I think is unfair to me to pay 20 times more than most people are gonna pay. And I don't know, and I know there is some credits that is possible that I think there ought to be a limit on. I got a guy that's got 80 acres right next to me, joins me, and he don't have no roads. He's gonna pay $38 and some odd cents. And that's all he's gonna pay. So I've got to be one of the few that's probably going to get stuck with a high bill to keep everybody else from paying 500 and something. I was for the parcels because I thought that was more fair, because none of my water goes through the storm sewer, and I know that's the debate. But I remember you saying if you're on the top of the hill or the bottom of the hill, we all got to contribute. But I don't think I should contribute 20 times more than anybody else that's actually on those city streets that uses stormwater. So I guess
The guy that's next to him, and actually the figure is $1,000, and I don't receive any Hannibal utilities.
no, that ain't you. I'm talking about Sucker's property.
So what's the response?
I want to add to that, I had a note from Ted Fix also. He would like to see an upper limit set in that. He's got, I think it was, 8,000 square feet or some ungodly number, but most of all his driveway. His driveway is actually a road that goes back into the property, and I'm suspecting that's what he's figuring in. But, he has that concern too on the upper limit of the properties.
And I guess the other thing I have, I don't know if anybody's thought about the commercial businesses, General Mills, for instance. I'm guessing that you guys got how many acres under roof?
67 acres and 63% of that
They're
is
going to pay
impervious.
well over $100,000.
Roughly 150.
Yeah.
Right.
And you got Lowe's, you got the Walmarts. I mean, you got a huge group of people that got a lot of ground that are gonna get really hit hard on this thing, and who in the heck's gonna wanna come to Hannibal and build a piece of property or annex their property in the city when you know you're gonna get a $100,000 tax every year? I mean, that's the thing I'm concerned about. We can go sell it to the individuals, and maybe that's all you care about, but I would think that the Lowe's and the Walmarts and General Mills and stuff are gonna try to do something to combat this, and I think it's gonna make it harder to try to get it to pass.
So, without me directing anything, what's the solution?
Well, there is no good solution, to be honest with you. I mean, you could separate residential from commercial, but that doesn't help the commercial. I mean, you could have an upper limit that you don't pay any more than this if you're residential, but the problem is you start digging into this $150,000, then you gotta come figure out where you're gonna get the rest of that money.
So we can draw it. Try not.
So that, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I've just been thinking about it, and I know what Black and Beach has said, and I know you've got your mindset on $4 million a year. But, okay, I'm just gonna compare it to like when you put out an ad to hire somebody. You don't put these credentials, you put these credentials, knowing you're gonna have to settle for these credentials. And so I'm just wondering, what if we can't get $4 million? What if we do some caps and some credits for detention centers and whatever, and you only get $2 million? That's $2 million more than you had before, and at least you can start a program. You can't do the full-blown program, but at least you can get it started.
That's what I said this way back, or when we first started it, I didn't understand how they came up with the 4 million without ever doing a survey of the sewer. I mean, we're talking about down Mark Twain Avenue, all these storm sewers are under these buildings. How do we know they deteriorated that bad? We haven't, I don't know, maybe you all been in them and
We
seen
have
them.
been in them.
Okay.
We
Maybe
do have,
something I don't
we've
know.
got pictures, we have enough information that it is deteriorated. We do know that, we're gonna be doing a North Street project that we're gonna do, how many feet for $5 million, Matt? It's not
I
a,
know it's not,
it-
I know
it-
it's a lot of money.
it goes fast, and
I
so,
understand that.
we've gone through, we've shown you how we've come to that $4 million mark. And it's a 10-year program where we're gonna be doing surveying, we're gonna be doing repairs and cleaning, just cleaning the whole dadgum system.
I understand.
So it's,
But I don't know how they came up with it.
yeah, well, I think we've been,
To me, it's
as-
maybe you've been in more meetings, I'm sure, to understand it, but
Yeah.
I'm like Michelle is, can't we scale this back a little bit and try to, one thing you said at the very first meeting is fair, fair, fair.
correct?
I don't think $5,400 versus $250 is very fair.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and my other concern, and I've brought this up at other meetings, is I say it's $250 because it's based on the numbers of Black and Beach. Those aren't hard numbers.
No.
So after we get this passed, then they're gonna use some of this money to pay them to actually calculate the real money. Well, if we're passing this and telling people $38 for 500 square feet, what if it ends up being 45?
So I'll tell you, I'm gonna make the commitment that we're not gonna go up from that number. And that we really, that's where we need to take that 38, 32. I can see that if we're gonna try and, like you just said, I think having a soft number there will not fly. We've got to settle on it. And so with that 38, 32, that came from mapping back in 2018. And the numbers are, I would say we're gonna stick with that 38, 32. Unless what happens, if you guys say, let's put some caps, do we take and recapture what we lose in putting those caps in place and spreading it throughout, and which would bring that number up over the all?
Well, and I asked Darren before the meeting started, that 3832, one of the pieces of paper we got here lists that, but it doesn't say per year. And
Well, I
people,
think that's the
they see that, and they're gonna, is that how much I gotta pay per month? I ain't voting for that. We need to specifically say our document needs to be very clear what we're proposing, whether it's per year or per month. Now, the ballot language that was proposed in the packet does say $3.20 per month.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and hop in here. That's a decent segue into what we can talk about the ballot language as we're addressing these other things. So the document that looks like this, where it has like a bunch of whereases, just says bunch of whereases, that's what Black and Veatch prepared. The language that looks like what the ordinance that's in the ordinance format that would be before city council, that's the language that Darren and I, yes, that's correct. That's the language that Darren and I have been working on together. And again, this is not anywhere near final, but we did want to put something before you all so you could see generally the direction, or at least a possible direction. And I agree with you. So what we would do, what I would propose we do in the ballot language would be to say per month.
But
So
on-
it says,
on
$3.20
this-
per
On this one
month.
piece of paper, because under the Freedom of Information Act, I mean, I know we're kind of an ad hoc group of the board, but we're probably subject to the Freedom of Information Act if people want to see what documents we've been looking at and considering. I really think we need to add on the first paragraph of the second page of this document that it says per year. We either talk per year or per month. I don't care. I don't want to confuse people, and then they say, well, you know, it says 38.32.
But on the actual proposal, it says $3.20.
I understand that. I am totally. I understand that, but this piece of paper right here doesn't say it, and it's subject to Freedom of Information Act information.
And frankly, we've made it all absolutely public, and so we'll take you are absolutely right, and we'll make sure, our attorney has heard it, and he's gonna correct that and make sure that we've got it
Yeah,
on all the
I would
documents.
do it per year. I would not do $3.20 a month because people are not gonna associate that with per 500 square feet.
Right.
They're gonna see $3.20 a month and think that's what it is, and then they're gonna get a bill for 3 or 4 times that amount, and they're gonna be mad. So I would keep it on an annual. The 500 square feet is the minimum. It is this much per 500 square feet annually.
So if you look at our proposed ballot language, we are very clear there that it's $3.20 per month per 500 square feet.
See, 500 is not the limit, Michelle, as I understand.
500 is the minimum.
Minimum.
If you have less than 500 square feet, you're getting charged for 500 square feet. If you have 71,000 square feet, we're dividing that by 500 and multiplying that by 3832. So, but
On an annual basis.
Right, on an annual basis, right. But I would not put in there monthly because that, I know it says 300 per month per 500 square feet. People won't read that. They will stop at $3.20 a month. I guarantee it. At least on my side of town, they will.
I'm concerned if people understand the 500 per square feet per impervious property is what I'm
Right.
concerned.
How to figure even square feet. Like some people
Yeah.
just don't know
Yeah.
how to figure square feet.
Yep.
Like length times width, right?
Yeah.
But it's not quite that simple.
I
Do you
think-
have some sort of database that if, you know, this is the ballot language, someone can call and say, this is my property and get what their actual fee would be as
but
part of their own individual research?
People are inherently lazy. They don't
Well,
want to have
that's
to
part of the
make a phone
education
call.
though, is that, you know,
Do we have that,
have to
Matt?
say, we
Is it
have
really
to.
We'd have to, so,
We've got the data, we've got the aerial to develop it from, but we gotta develop it.
we'd have to do it with
That
each.
would go a long way when it comes to individuals.
Or if you
supporting.
even had a calculator on your website, so somebody could put in their square feet and it would, you know, like a bank's got a mortgage calculator. If you had impervious area calculator, and it would do the divide by 500, multiply by, and it would just spit out their number. I mean, something that people can go and,
Because I can get my land surveyed and I may come up with 800 square feet, but if I go to Zillow, which is what a lot of people look at, it'll tell me I have 1,013 square feet
well, yeah, the stuff online.
on my
is-
lot.
Yeah,
So the point comes down to is there needs to be a source of where this is coming from, because like I said, there's an awful lot of people out there that use Zillow,
yeah.
and and it's not that it's far
And
off,
there's a
but
lot
it's
of-
not accurate.
Well, there's a lot of hunters that have property apps too, and the property lines are not accurate. They're either in it, it's because of a lot of issues, obviously curvature of the earth and aerial photography, and you're drawing straight lines over top of it, and that just never comes out right. But, yeah, I agree, it's hard to explain that to people, but that's gonna have to, I don't know, there's,
And that comes back to the homeowner knowing what he's living on.
well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, most people know what the square footage of their house is. And the square footage of your roof is not much bigger than the square footage of your house.
Well, you got a garage.
Unless you're two-story or
Nobody
three-story.
counts their garage.
Well, no, I
square feet,
realize that, and that's why I said I did the math.
Overhang, it's surprising how much bigger.
Yeah,
it is.
because when I added my patio and my front porch and my 5-car driveway and my, yeah, I gotcha. And it's like I've said, I understand your concern with
Sure, my
limiting
gravel out.
people coming in to build, because I've already said, there's improvements I'd like to make to my property, and what I'm basically doing is creating more impervious areas, so, yeah, but what else can we do? I mean, there
I know
has to
everybody's-
come a point in time when storm sewers have to be fixed. I mean, we do legitimately have, I was parked on one the other day, metal plates on the road.
Well, is there, I
where-
know there's the figure of, for parcels was $500 and some odd dollars, I think, wasn't it?
537.
Is it possible to, and I think there would still be some exceptions, but is it possible to have a residential parcel price and a commercial parcel price to make it a little bit more equitable? So I got a storage facility on my property. I think I should pay a commercial price for that property parcel versus my house. And it would be more beneficial to businesses, wouldn't make them break the bank with them. I mean, I know every business that gets hit with this Peters is gonna get hit with $10,000. You think they're gonna absorb that? I mean, they're gonna have to pass it on to the customers, so the people that we don't want to pay a parcel price are gonna have to pay more to have their air conditioner worked on. I mean, every business in Lowe's and Walmart, they're all gonna have to raise their pricing to cover their cost.
Yeah, but they're gonna do that no matter what.
Well,
I
if
mean,
they don't have a pricing.
Theoretically, they're gonna do that no matter what.
Yeah, they got a
tax.
mechanism to do it. People
Right.
like me don't have, I can't charge anybody anymore because I don't have nobody to charge.
Right.
But I'm saying, make it not, I think General Mills is probably gonna flip off the chart when they hear this, aren't they?
Pretty much. We have to figure out how to
It's a
solve
huge
it.
employer of this town. And there's a lot of those
What'd you
companies.
say, Jake?
We have to figure out how to solve it. So through productivity, through efficiencies of line improvements, or, no annual increase, things like that is how we have to solve it.
Our move.
I got a flat budget, so
Yep.
regardless of what bills come at me, we have to solve it.
I got a couple of questions, if it's okay. Have you considered a stormwater district that exceeds Hannibal city limits?
No, we have not.
Okay. Are you going to be tested on the water running into town? Your effluent.
MS4.
Out of town, your M4. Are you going to be tested on all the water that comes through the Hannibal area that even comes from outside the city limits?
Well, we've already got Bear Creek, and I think we've got that one, so that's coming from outside the city limits. I think
Bear
we
Creek drainage
definitely
district.
have that impact coming in.
Well, that's the reason I'm getting
From
at the
drainage,
point
yeah.
of possibly, it's kind of going to throw a ball and everything, but like a our district that
Special
exceeds
improvement
it.
district that circles everything, call
Yeah,
it a stormwater
Bear
district.
Creek drainage district, let's take, and I know there's a little
Some
bit
of it
more.
covers the county.
Yeah, almost. it'll run out to,
Well, yeah, you're right. The Bear Creek watershed
Yeah.
is much bigger than.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know
Hannibal
if that's
city limits.
anything that's been considered or is even feasible. I'm just throwing that
Part
out
of,
there.
again, part of that is
What
you
would be
start,
the benefit of a district?
Well, it's more people to pay, spread out the cost over more people.
Citizens of Hannibal or
The county
County.
and Rawls
County.
County, Monroe, or
Monroe.
Marion and Rawls County mainly.
I got a field
Everything that
next to
drains
me.
through, we gotta be responsible for
what
the
you're
water.
what you're talking about now is involving the commission.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's feasible, I'm just throwing it out there.
Well,
It is a drainage district, and you're gonna have to be responsible for the water that goes down Bear Creek.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to be responsible for the water coming in Bear Creek.
which, so again, it kind of comes to the question of authority. And I
Yeah.
think, my mind goes to special improvement districts, and I've done those before. But you have to have 51% of everybody inside of that agree to it, or 51%. And I believe in Missouri, you have to have not only 51% of the populace, but 51% of the property ownership. That way you can't go out there and get the big farmer,
Yeah.
throw a circle around them, and then you've got that 51%. And so the ability to go out there and again, ask those folks to take and join this so that we can tax them to pay their fair share of what they're doing on the stormwater, it just becomes very complex and
I can
problematic.
see,
And I don't,
by doing a district, I can see county people saying, it's not our problem, it's
Correct.
your problem.
and that's,
DNR
and we
is gonna
have,
tell you different.
and right off the step,
DNR's gonna tell you different.
the Board of Public
Well-
Works, we only have authority and the
Yeah.
right. We've been given the jurisdiction from the city
Right,
to take care of ours, and so we'd be stepping way out into something. We
Understand.
have no authority, we have no,
Okay.
it'd be really,
Just a thought,
But I kind of understand his point about
he's correct. I know,
farm
I agree
across-
completely.
farm across my road. All of their fertilizer and chemicals run right down through my property, through a city property to where you guys are gonna test it at. And is Hannibal gonna get hammered for this, or is that farmer gonna get hammered for this?
I'm not necessarily opposed to the district. My concern is, it would even be tougher to get it passed. Because it involves more people who say, I don't live in the city of Hannibal. Why should I have to pay for their problem? And the problem is, we have a stormwater system that's over 100 years old in the city of Hannibal. That's the problem.
Right.
Now, how do we solve it?
None of
And
my property
people
runs in the storm sewer either.
in a district in the county is gonna say, ain't my problem.
And that's what I'm saying, none of my water runs into the storm sewer, so. But I am a resident of Hannibal.
Well, and we've got 3 councilmen here, and I'm not throwing stones at them because I used to be one, but the thing of it is,
I'll throw a stone.
100 years ago, the city council didn't deal with this.
1960.
And the city hasn't dealt with it, and the board hasn't dealt with it, and it's time to be dealt with before DNR and EPA take every penny we own. And there won't be any money for streets, salaries, or police department, or fire department, or anything.
The city needs to do like a lot of big cities do and get the county involved in this and expand our territory so that we get help from the county, because those people living right across the road from me probably use the streets the same as I use the streets.
I'm not,
And they don't pay a dime.
I understand that.
Mr. Peters, let me ask you a tough question. What would be a fair number for you?
For me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll pay $1,000 a year if I can get away with it.
Okay.
Still,
That's where my
4 or
number
5,
comes in.
it's 4 or 5 times more than most people are gonna pay.
Correct.
That's
No,
where my
thank
number
you.
is, $75 a month. That's more than I pay in the water.
How many watersheds do we have other than Bear Creek? Because I know we have Minnow Creek that runs through the
Minnow Creek.
area off of Market Street.
And then there's one that runs along Fulton over on the south side somewhere.
Maybe about 6 or 7 in total. 5?
I was thinking 5.
Five?
Matt?
Matt,
Say a
looking
month.
back at you, how many do we have in total?
A few years ago.
6 or 7, I think?
read that.
Most of them go into Bear Creek, but there's a couple that.
Well,
go
there's
directly
two.
to
There's
Walmart.
like
There's
one
two that go
along
directly to
Fulton
Walmart.
Avenue,
You've
and then
got
there's
3.
one along Valley Street.
I wasn't
and they
trying
both
to cast
try
a large net. but
Yeah.
We talked about Bear Creek, but we didn't talk about the other
Yeah.
runoffs that we're having to deal with that come in from other parts of the
Yeah.
city.
They-
It's going to impact our,
I just-
whatever we do.
Wanted to interject real quick because I fully understand where every single one of you guys are coming from when it comes to watershed management. Watersheds don't recognize political boundaries, but unfortunately we are bound by the state and they do recognize political boundaries. So we have to just focus on Hannibal regardless of how fair or unfair it is. Just wanted to say that because I think that we are really trying to tackle a huge issue and trying to like place blame on others. Unfortunately, they're just not impacted. So we should focus on what we can do as a community in Hannibal. So that's just that. Thank you.
One more question. Is the railroad gonna be paying?
Are they in exempt?
I don't know that they are necessarily
I
exempt.
don't think they are.
It's a large area, and about all of it's impervious. If you're gonna include a gravel road, you've gotta include the railroad tracks.
Matt, you're shaking your head. You have experience with that? They're not paying?
There are.
You think they are? Okay. So they
That's
should be.
included into this sum.
Predate. They're long.
That's got to be several $1,000s.
Quite a bit.
So the real O&M on this, like, how many employees are we gonna have to hire for this? What equipment are we gonna have to hire or buy for this? How much will we actually have left over to actually do actual stormwater? At the end of
We
it?
can go back to the spreadsheet that's got it figured out. Again, kind of the first year, we're gonna go heavy with survey and cleaning. Part of that cleaning survey, right off the bat, that's gonna be a whole bunch. And then we're gonna go right into the surveying and cleaning so that the surveying can be complete. And then we're gonna go and start prioritizing and go with the heaviest. And so within about 2 years, of the first 2 years, we'll be low on asset and employee. And then we're gonna ramp up to those employees. I think we have 6 of them in there, and then we're gonna be able to move forward and start doing the work. Gotta have a crew so we can replace pipe. We've gotta be able to clean. We've gotta be able to manage it, maintain it. So that's what we're looking at in
Are you gonna
perpetuity.
have to buy additional equipment, or are you
Yes.
gonna be able to utilize equipment from the water?
You'll have to
sewer
get a
department?
all whole new vac truck.
We're looking like a vac truck, a backhoe, and a truck. For that to work.
That's year 2.
Yes.
2 or 3.
So
Yeah.
first year, we're not getting anything
Starting right off with survey and
surveying everything, so we're
Yep.
just paying the engineers to come up with
Yeah,
how much it is.
that's why I had mentioned a couple meetings ago that
Right.
we might be better off just simply from a PR situation to come up with one small project in each ward each year, so that, because people are gonna be mad if they're paying all this money and all that's happening is surveying.
and it's
They
not
don't
gonna be
under-
sexy
they don't
first year.
understand it.
Yeah.
They just don't understand it.
So we can look at 0 improvement the first year.
You're not gonna see you're not gonna see a lot of dirt turning. I think we can,
And we just have to, when we go out and talk to people, we need to tell them that. There's
Well-
work, there's,
and
They're
we,
gonna wanna know how, the people that are gonna show up to the meetings are gonna wanna know, how do you know it's $4 million if you haven't even surveyed the storm sewer yet and don't know what you're looking at? I mean, I'm just saying, that's what they're, because that's what
question.
I've been.
That's a real question.
that's a good question. We can, and really truly, we've got pictures, we've got evidence, we have enough information. I think we can show you exactly where we've got needs existing that help develop the idea that we need this.
So if the first year gets $4 million, that's enough to pay the surveyors and buy a vac truck.
No? A vac truck, right? Well, yes.
Is that right?
We could.
How much is a vac truck?
Right around 600,000?
Part of it isn't just that. When we take this material out of the storm sewer, it all has to go to a landfill.
Right.
So we have to build a system to where we can transfer it from a back truck to a dump trailer or roll-off containers that can be hauled to the landfill. And then we have to pay the tipping fees at the landfill.
And all of it is contaminated.
So that loading site has to be somewhat of a
With-
sanitary.
Yeah, it's not just simply dirt we're hauling off.
How
It
many
is-
back trucks do we have now? Two?
Too.
So are we saying we need more than two?
Yeah, I mean, we still gotta maintain the sanitary sewer,
Okay.
and so this would be in addition to, plus all the back truck work for the storm sewer is gonna be twice, if not more, or harder on that equipment because all the abrasiveness of the grit.
So what is
on
it that
the
you
equipment.
think it's contaminated, what is it contaminated with?
Because it's coming,
Oil,
That's
antifreeze,
Off of roads?
trash.
pretty much anything that's on the street.
MDNR requires
Ask-
it to be
Ask
taken.
the city about hauling the street sweepings.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same thing that they have to do.
Is that considered hazardous waste?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure the city got in trouble for that about, Andrea, could you tell us about that?
I mean, I'm gonna say I think it was in 2019 when the last MS4 audit was actually,
And so the city got in trouble for our
because that is
street-
part of the stormwater management plan, having a best management practice as far as getting rid of street sweeping. So
So like, at the end of year 2, we will have notable progress.
We'll start, by then we'll have prioritized and we'll be replacing and repairing pipe in the ground. Yes.
Go back to a question I asked in the first meeting, I think. What are the consequences of us not getting this passed for year 1, year 3, year 5? What am I going to tell my people who are like me and like other people here that feel, well, I don't have any impact on that. I'm taking care of somebody else. What are the consequences for the city of Hannibal and how they provide service to me of not getting this passed and having the continuous degradation of the system that we're having to suffer? How many metal plates we got in the road out there now? 1, 10, 20? I mean, I don't know what those numbers are. That's going to be a piece that invariably is going to come up in our discussions when we get into that point of what is the true consequence over the long haul of not arriving at a solution for this. And, you know, I have a vision of what they might be from my perspective, but you know, year 1, you're gonna have more plates go in. Year 2, you're gonna have to close some roads. Year 3, you're gonna have somebody get hurt somewhere along the line. And all of this time, the state and DNR are raising the fines that might be given to you. I mean, I'm just throwing stuff out there. What is the true consequence of not passing this, in addition to the continuous failures?
And who would have to pay those fines?
Yeah.
Is it the board or is it the city of Hannibal?
It's right now to the city.
Huh?
The city. We don't have any dollars to put towards it.
Then
So-
when the
And so,
city,
again, and you're absolutely right, this discussion is what, as a committee, we've got to be prepared to educate with. Because what ultimately, again, I've said it, top of the hill, bottom of the hill, this is for safety. This is environmental safety, for what we're putting in the river that ends up in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's why MS4 is involved. So we've got environmental issues that are going on. The other thing is actual safety. And we've got, you know, a couple of years ago, you had a picture of the failed storm drain down on the south side with the young girl's tennis shoe in there. As she was
Right.
walking to school, she fell through. Well, then you can pivot a little bit and go to North Street. What would happen if there had been a parked car on top of that when that water came through and blew that entire storm drain out of the ground and blew that road out? It is safety, it's safety,
none
and
of
so,
those things have affected me yet.
correct. Yeah, you weren't parked there, right?
I've read about them in the paper. I feel sorry for those people that were affected, but they've not affected me.
Right, you're on top of the hill.
What I envision, maybe the back half of this question is, well, at some point, the city is going to have to redirect money, whether it's in fines or whether it's taking money off of the street department and not coming and fixing my street and applying it here to fix this plate that's in the street. I mean, that's what I see as this consequence going down. The city is going to lose its ability to provide services, short of making the city a safer place and more maintainable place.
You could almost, so as the city has it pretty tight, they're running a tight budget. If they,
Too tight.
a very tight budget, so do you want to start giving up suited officers? Do you want to reduce the police force so that you can have, because they have to
It's
swing
already
it?
reduced about a third.
So I guess what I'm gonna say is, can we not play, but is there a serious amount of pride in what Hannibal is?
That's through sale point, but you gotta answer that other question too.
This is an
maintain that
integral,
pride.
this is a serious problem. It's an integral part of making Hannibal great.
Proud to live here. The rest of it.
Where do you want to put your money where your mouth is?
I want to throw out a comment, and I know you probably can't answer.
Come up closer to the microphone.
I'm gonna throw out a comment, and I know you probably can't answer it, and you may not wanna answer it, but where is the city of Hannibal? I mean, why haven't we had more? I mean, you've got council members here, but you would think the city manager and maybe the mayor, it's a concern for them also that they need to be here, because like Bob said, they could be involved in it through the fine.
You don't really see
And I would think they would want to have a lot of interest on what's happening with this committee.
Okay,
I mean,
that's not a question that I'm gonna answer,
I know,
and
I
I
know.
would leave that entirely up to them. But I
And
mean,
the board is paying a 5.5% franchise fee. There's other people that are paying franchise fees also. And if I'm not mistaken, you're probably the one that's paying the most franchise fee to the city of Hannibal besides other outlying areas, so.
No one else pays a franchise fee.
what's that?
Well,
Liberty.
Liberty does.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Fort
That's
Public
not-
Works, Liberty.
Thank you, great comment. We're not gonna talk about that here.
So I have a question about the ballot language.
Cable, telephone.
And honestly, I came here with this question anyway, just because we've been talking about taxes and we haven't been using the word fee. Because I know that the last time we brought it to the ballot, it was a fee. Or is it considered a fee if we, okay, so
Well, want me to take?
Yes, go ahead.
I will tackle that.
thank you.
Okay, so the state, under Missouri law, it would be considered a tax regardless. You can call it a tax or a fee. But under Missouri court precedent, if a fee looks like a tax, the state will consider it a tax, which is why we have to
Sure.
put it on the ballot regardless of what we call it. So I'll sort of go into the process with calling it a fee, and also we can go back to the 320 versus the 38 whatever. And this is a political strategy question for you all. So taking the lawyer hat off, putting on the political strategy hat on. So in order to pass something, there are certain things that voters don't like to see. Voters don't like taxes, plain and simple, especially in jurisdictions like Hannibal, given the political makeup of Hannibal, don't like taxes. And we don't like big numbers if we are talking about taxes. So we can call it a fee. And we can also go with a monthly number instead of the yearly number to get the number that shows up on the ballot smaller. So that is a question for you all on what you want to do as far as the language. We could go, I think, either way, and we'll continue to flesh this out. But we could call it a tax or we could call it a fee, but that's a political strategy question, as is whether we want to put the big number, the 38, I can't remember the cents, but the 38 and some odd cents number per 500, or if we want to go with the smaller number. Again, it's what do we think that the voters of Hannibal would tolerate? What would they pass?
Okay. I appreciate that explanation.
I don't wanna think you wanna try to deceive people, cause they're not
Yeah.
that stupid.
I don't
Right.
think that it's deceit.
And I agree.
Well,
You don't think what?
I don't think you wanna try to deceive them with a smaller number and make it sound better than it is.
Yeah.
I really don't.
I mean, even though you're trying to get it
We
passed, I
obviously
just
decide
don't
that as a
think that's
committee,
right.
but I feel like
And I'm gonna warn you that this part that says impervious area, surface area that does not allow rain or snow to be directly absorbed into the underlying ground. And anybody like me that's got a gravel driveway
I'm
is
gonna tear
gonna
mine
think,
up.
oh, that's pervious, cause snow and rain go through that rock. When I happen to know from an engineering point of view,
It does
that's not. I mean, it does go through, but it hits that shelf of soil underneath that is very compact and kind of runs between the rock and that shelf. It doesn't absorb through, but 9 times out of 10 people, because they've been told, put pavers in, put gravel in, and they've been told that so that the water absorbs rather than running off. And they are not going to realize that their driveway or whatever counts as impervious material. And I don't know, I mean, obviously, you're not going to want to tie down ballot language with definitions, but people are going to be pretty upset when they find out that what they thought was a pervious area really is not.
Everything's impervious once you have saturation.
Yep.
Correct.
True.
Good definition. And that's when you do the storm sewers, that's when they get loaded.
Well, the other thing I reflect back, this has been on the ballot once, failed by 12 votes on an impervious issue, right? Is this ballot language very similar to what was on before?
It's similar, yes.
I don't remember if it had. I don't remember if
think
it
we had
had
that
a dollar amount per month.
It did not.
It didn't.
Did not.
But I mean, if we'd had 13 more votes 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't even be talking about that.
Correct. Correct.
But that's history.
That is history.
so.
I'm sorry.
So with this being $3.20 per month for 500 square feet, does that mean that this is the fee that is locked in until it's another vote?
Correct.
Okay. Honestly,
Until what?
based off of my experience in educating the previous time, the number one comment feedback that we received was, I'm not comfortable giving you a blank check, which was completely understandable. And I think educating the same, I think that this is well phrased.
And another thing that's worth pointing out that I don't know.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Yeah. Another thing that's worth pointing out that I don't think has been touched on in this group yet is when we went in 2019.
There you go.
It was structured as a true fee. So it gave the utility the ability to adjust the fee. This time around, this is a tax that cannot be adjusted without going back to the voters again. So that is a very key difference between 2019 and whatever comes next. And so when Andrea talks about a blank check, that's kind of what she was getting at. Not only did people not understand this, but the utility almost had carte blanche to increase the fee
Yeah.
as needed.
This is the fee now, but in the future, when our costs increase, the fee is going to increase. And
Yes.
that's what
Not
so
the
many
case
people
now.
were uncomfortable with.
Yes, and that is not the case this time
Yes.
around.
Overall, impervious area
Well,
was supported.
The only way this can be increased would be with another vote of the people.
And that's how passing the first time, that's how you establish trust, in my opinion.
What was the fee back in 2019? Gonna be.
I think it was like $28, 500.
$1.39 per 500 square feet.
That included
But that was
non-profits.
the non-for-profits as well.
Included.
Because it was act as a
Yeah.
true utility.
Per month.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have a legal opinion now that
Now you can't
it
provide it
can't, not profits
Correct.
cannot be included.
because it's not
Supreme
measurable.
Court said it's not meterable.
Meterable.
Which I find interesting, because, I mean, that'd be tedious, and you'd have to hire somebody to do it, but you could actually calculate by rainfall and square footage.
So let me jump in, just going down one more time, going to credit. We can still go back to any question you've got. We're not slowing you down. When it comes to credits, one of the things we looked at, because this is a tax, we cannot, once we put that $32 and cents in there, or $3.20, however we write that, once that's in, it doesn't change. It is a tax, and until we have another ballot to change that, that's what it is. But when it comes to credits, that's where we asked, can we do that outside of this bill, this election?
And the answer to that question is probably yes. So the reason we have to put this on the ballot in the first place is because in Missouri, we have something called the Hancock Amendment, which requires anything that is a tax or that looks like a tax to go to the voters. So any tax increase, I should say, has to go to the voters. Anything that is a tax decrease or a credit does not have to go to the voters. So if city council decided that they wanted to offer or create some sort of credit program or exemption, exceptions, they could do that. That would not necessarily have to be on the ballot. We can include that in the ballot language if we feel like we need to for whatever purpose. But the big takeaway is credits and exemptions do appear to be okay. There are a number of jurisdictions in Missouri that have a fairly robust credit system. Kansas City is one that comes to mind, but that is an option.
What type of credits are you talking about? Like, can you classify them?
Sure. So one of the things that you all talked about at this last meeting was if you have retention ponds, if you have entities that just dump into the creek, whether that would be something that would be creditable. Those are all things that you could create some sort of formula where they would get some kind of credit toward the amount of tax or fee that they would pay.
I think for the last 10 or 15 years, I think it's been on the books. And Mike, Steve, Casey, new construction in Hannibal requires retention ponds, especially if you've got a large parking lot. Like the new shopping center, which is not new anymore, the Walmart shop, the current Walmart shop, has a retention pond. Lowe's has a retention.
Nobody upkeeps their retention pond though. They fill real hard.
Part of the MS4 to inspect those.
Golden Eagles expansion has a significant retention pond in it.
The which one?
Golden Eagles expansion, which is double the size of their warehouse.
Yep.
It has a retention pond.
Yeah, they're supposed to maintain
They're
them.
supposed to.
I think it's a requirement
we're
now
supposed
that
It is.
for major new construction to have retention
Charge
ponds,
them for ours then.
which
Bear Creek backs up into ours.
I mean, it's
that's going to capture, may not capture all, but hopefully it will capture a good portion of the runoff of the parking lot.
And so right now, one of the things that I wanted, so I'll make two comments. Number one, we have those standards right now, and those standards are still the standard. If they've already got the retention pond, they're maintaining it, they're keeping it, that keeps them dead level. We can't, if you want, we could go back and give them credit. But again, that's going to take and reduce your revenues that are coming in. Where do you make up that difference? What I would perceive is if General Mills went and they took their parking lot and put it in as pervious pavement. I could see giving them a percent.
That silts in as well.
It does. They'd have to maintain it. You have to vacuum it. There's things you have to do.
Does BPW have someone who checks?
Nope,
No.
not yet. That would be part of,
Be another
that would be a
position.
complexity that is a cost.
Casey, what was your question? Does BPW?
Colin. I'm Colin.
Sorry.
It happens all the time.
It does. I was asking if they have somebody who inspects the retention ponds, and they do not. So you would have to create a position for somebody to go and inspect those.
Right.
Yes.
We installed pervious concrete on our parking lot, the engineers.
But we have to inspect it.
But it didn't, first of all, it wasn't poured properly. They poured it like regular concrete and wanted to soup it up. That's a no. And then just from construction traffic, I mean, it's just all silted in and busted up. So, I mean, water still trickles through it, but not nearly like it did at one time.
So there's retention, landscaping that they can do. There's things that's out there that you could, and, you know, there was, where I came from, they talked about giving people credit for their rain barrel. I do not want to even talk about that
only
again,
thought about-
because,
No.
you know, you get 25 cents off your bill, that's great, but I mean, so just exactly what Colin said, there's a complexity to that. If we want to consider doing credits, you can. What also that I was told by the attorney, our attorney, Alex, is that this could be done through the city.
Yeah, could the building inspector pick up some of this?
Building
It
inspector's
could,
not
no,
qualified enough to make that decision.
I'm not saying that as giving them the job to do it, but if we came up with a system of giving credits, we could then, after this passed, still take that as a resolution to the city and create some form or system of credit. Okay? So
I only
that's-
thought about it with properties that have retention ponds and something similar like that has a big runoff. It might help it make a little bit more palatable to them in the overall cost that they might have to pay if we were granting a credit. Now,
Problem with giving the credits is the city knows you gotta get $4 million. They're not gonna be very willing to give credits. Just kinda going on a hope that.
And that's after the fact then, also. You're hoping or we're wishing that takes place if the bill passes.
Give a credit, you're gonna cut your budget.
What's that?
If you give a credit, you're gonna cut your budget.
Yeah. Exactly right.
So you're back to square one. Do you need $4 million? If you're gonna give credits, you need more.
Yep.
And you're giving
good point.
40% credits right now to nonprofits.
Yes.
Where are we at?
This is more and more unmanageable.
Somebody once said taxes are what you pay for an organized society. And that's what we're trying to do, is organize the society.
Well,
So
and it's
that you
just
can
tough when
drive
you're
down
trying
the
to make
pavement.
up for decades of it. Like it's hard because it's decades of going touched.
yes.
Yeah,
And
I worked with the guys that used to work in the storm sewers when it belonged to the city. Talk about taking the wheelbars apart, going down into them, cleaning them out, replastering the inside, tuck pointing, and coming out.
And running into rats that are as big as he was.
That was, like I said, late 50s, early 60s at the last time, and that's when they done away with, they separated the boards. Sewer came to the Board of Public Works at that time, because that's where the employees came to.
That was the 50s and 60s?
Yeah.
I bet they're, take quite a few wheelbarrows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know when we attached to the stormwater that goes directly into the Mississippi when we widened the riverfront. It's funny because I was there and the guys were doing the best they could to clean out enough to be able to attach the new piece of pipe and extend on. And I remember going, hey, Herbie, take your shovel and scoot some of that out of there. He goes, I've been thinking about it, but when I look up in there, as far as the eye can see, and it was, 2/3 or more full. And I know that's from flood sediment mostly. It's probably other stuff too, but there's a lot. There's just a lot that's been allowed to.
Massive volumes. Let's, my suggestion, if you want to take any kind of break, or let's go around the room and let's give thoughts as to where you stand, what you're thinking, where do we go from here?
Oh, I don't want
And, what's that? We start over here?
to start first. I don't really want to give that opinion.
Well, we need to have, hey, again, I appreciate all of you being fantastic about sharing your thoughts, and nobody's been castigated, harmed, or any other way, so keep it up, and we're going to end on the right thing. We'll do that, and then we're going to come back and talk about the kind of the election When does it need to happen? What are your guys' thoughts on that? And again, Alex has some great, he's, as a elected representative at the state level, he's got some pretty good ideas and experience there. Larry?
We need to finalize the ballot language, I know, but the other thing is, when does this have to be finalized by to make the November ballot? What's the drop dead date?
We need to.
City council needs 2 meetings to approve it, unless they do a emergency reading.
I think they have to have it approved by the end of July, correct? In order for to have it by the end of July to the election.
No, into August. So it would go to our board in July, 2 council meetings in August, and then they could make the county at the end of August.
But if this is a priority, you could have a special board meeting too.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
On that subject, does it matter if we have it in August, or November or April?
Yeah, I
As
thought
far
we
as the
talked
money
about
coming in?
this already because.
Probably don't want to
No,
put it on the November.
November's gonna be nothing. There's nothing on this November ballot.
But
so
as
far.
far as the income to the board, won't make any difference when that money will come into the board, right?
No.
Right.
You can't create the utility until the laws, or until the ballot language is passed.
Well, it's
Right.
created, they just can't fund it.
So,
I mean, it's-
Well, yeah.
You've got a November, so one of the questions is you got a November ballot. It'll be so far, it'll be the only question on that ballot.
Right.
So everybody that's going to be going to that, sometimes being motivated to say no is stronger than the motivation to say yes, especially to a tax. So if you move it to the April,
Right.
you'll have more people. You're going to be having elections for councilmen. You've got a few more.
Chime in here.
I'm shutting up and he's going from here.
All right, I'll go ahead and chime in here on that. So I wanted to raise that as a concern because I do know it sounded like at the last meeting there was quite a bit of excitement or interest in going to a November ballot this year, when my understanding is that would be the only question on the ballot. We don't have a general election in the state that's going to drive out turnout. My understanding, and I could be wrong, is there's not anything else that Hannibal or the counties are considering in November either. So this would be the only question on the ballot. So here we are with the political strategy question again that you all have to decide. Given the makeup of Hannibal, do you think that you would have excitement from 50% plus one of your voters, whoever shows up in November, to vote yes, if that would be your desire to put something on the ballot that you want to see passed? Do you think that there will be excitement that would generate voter enthusiasm if this is the only question? My experience with that is no. If you can pass taxes at the ballot in Missouri, you can pass taxes in small towns at the ballot in Missouri, but typically there has to be some other interesting thing on the ballot to generate voter enthusiasm, to get the right 50% plus one to come out and vote. So I would imagine if you all are like where I'm from, you'll probably have city council elections in April next year, which could be interesting potentially. Maybe you have interesting school board races or other propositions or questions that would generate some sort of enthusiasm. Because that typically what happens is your people who are hardcore no's on any sort of tax increases are generally more excited to come out if that's going to be the only thing. They want to come out and say, yeah, no more taxes. We're not about that. It's going to take, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. You all know it's going to take a pretty Herculean effort to get the voters to say yes to this. Even though it only failed by 12 votes last time, it's still going to be tough. I would imagine if Hannibal is like where I'm from, that people haven't gotten more excited about tax increases over the past 4 or 5 years. They've probably become less excited about that. So
Almost 9%.
again, it's up to you, but if you want to see something pass, I would be very concerned about trying to put something on November, both because of the makeup of who would likely show up, who would be most enthusiastic, as well as it's going to take, I believe, some significant time and resources to educate the population about what you all are trying to do here and why it's important. We can talk about this here in a little bit, but it's going to take resources to put a campaign together to go out and educate the public. If you're going to do it right, it needs to be a combination of, you've got your yes on proposition, whatever signs that you're going to want all over the place, but it's good if you can have a door-to-door operation that you have people handing out flyers and talking about why it's important. It's even better if you can put together some sort of direct mail operation where you figure out who are your voters that come to vote in municipal elections in April. I know you city council guys know about this. You would want to send direct mail to those people to let them know, here's what's going on, here's why it's important, here's the catastrophic impact of what happens if we fail. And if we do fail, it's going to take time again before there would be the political capital to be able to put it on the ballot again. So this is sort of a one shot for 5 years or more probably. That just seems to be the nature of how these types of tax type of bills work. So just something for you to think about, but I would be pretty nervous about gunning for November, just because I think it sounds like maybe we have a few questions that we still need to decide as a group about where we want to go. If we want to stick with the impervious, do we want to put a cap? If so, what's the number that works? How do we still get to the number that we need with 4 million? If we're going to start doing caps, if we're going to start doing credits, that's going to have to adjust the numbers around potentially. Where I'm not sure that we would be in a spot to have all of our ducks in a row ready to launch a campaign this summer, ready to raise the funds this summer and get the right 50% plus one to come out in November when that's the only question on the ballot. So those are a few thoughts from me on that. Happy to take any questions, but again, that's ultimately for you all to decide.
I have a question for our three councilmen. In April, but there's two councilmen up for re-election or somebody else?
It'll be two councilmen. It'll be first ward and third ward, which is me.
Okay. But not the mayor, not the judge, not the city attorney or anything like that.
City attorney is not elected.
That's right, he's appointed.
The mayor's on the same cycle as I am. I've got 2 years left.
Well,
School district will
and
also have
the other,
I'm sorry, say it.
The school district will also have 2 board members on there.
I'm sorry?
The school board will also have 2 positions, Tysa Coleman's and
Good
Krista
point.
Parker's.
That's a good point. Any anticipated bond issues in April?
We did have a finance planning session last month, but nothing has been decided at this point.
Okay. And I'm not trying to throw a hornet out there, but the gentlemen on the council know that an issue was on the news last night. They're considering, they passed in special session last night a 10% increase in the salary for fire and police, I think. Is that correct?
Across the board.
Across the board. But to do it again next year, they need more money.
Yeah.
And they're talking, they haven't decided anything the way I understand it, but they're considering either a property tax or a sales tax increase to fund more, to be able to compensate our emergency services.
They would not be able to do a sales tax, right?
Pardon me?
I don't think they should be able to do a sales tax if this can't do a sales tax.
There may be some other options that would work for that particular purpose.
But I'm throwing that out there because that's something that's coming down the road that can be running interference on this project.
I'll jump in real quick. To kind of, if it's okay with everybody. to kind of dovetail with both comments. So you're talking about the passion of people. People probably have more passion to say no than they have to say yes. So just a local example of that. In August of 2021, the city of Hannibal went to the ballot for a infrastructure tax.
Thank you.
And that was the only issue on that ballot, and it failed. To be fair, a couple tweaks were made, but then it was put back on the ballot for the April municipal election, and it passed. So it's not a perfect analogy, but it's a pretty similar analogy.
Well, and I understand what he's saying because more people will come out to vote.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you only have one issue, you're going to get the no votes there.
Yep.
You may not get the yes votes.
Yep.
But if you've got councilmen and other elected positions and Board of Education and proposed bond issue from Board of Education, more people are going to come out. There's more issues to vote on. You've got a greater possibility to get it passed.
Yep. And as far as the funding mechanisms you brought up, my intention, I can't speak for everybody else, but my intention is to give the utility the chance that they need to do what they need to do with the stormwater before we consider anything else.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
I think it's key fair.
And Mike?
And I think I'd said before, one of the big reasons that the infrastructure tax passed was education. And we had a committee that, was doing flyers. It was my election year. And I went out and campaigned. I had an opponent, so I left my flyer as well as a flyer for that infrastructure tax. And it passed overwhelmingly in the second ward that kind of carried the city. But my point is it's all about education.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the panel.
And I would just.
What is the infrastructure tax being utilized for?
Well, the biggest line item on it right now is St. Elizabeth Hospital. Proposed to tear down the 70s portion.
That's not infrastructure.
It's infrastructure.
Well, and
and it was for demolition of old abandoned homes.
It was for multiple things.
It was for multiple things.
Okay, but what infrastructure projects are you utilizing the tax for?
Today, zero.
Today, zero, because right now we're just collecting it.
And with all due respect, multiple conversations that I've had with community members, they feel that what they voted yes for was going towards stormwater. And I know that education is very key, but that's a hurdle that we face as well. Yeah. So just.
Well, I mean, the city's still responsible for stormwater above ground.
Right. It just goes back to that education key.
Right. It does.
Michelle, if you want to go down that rabbit hole right now, I'll be happy to go there with you, but for the purposes of the meeting,
we're going to keep on rolling.
But I'll talk to you for as long as you want to afterwards about all that kind of stuff.
So let's come over here.
I'm sorry, this is way off topic, and you can answer this later. Has the 70s portion of the St. Elizabeth's Hospital had an asbestos inspection done?
Yes, actually, I'm pretty sure all the asbestos has been abated.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, we're going to cover that. That does not have to do with our
I
stormwater.
apologize.
Here we are.
What?
We're reeling it in. Let's go over here. Marty, what are you thinking? What have you got? What's on your mind?
Well, after looking at the talking points, it pretty much took the legs right out from under us when you're talking about trying to fund something like this. When you're talking about the fact that we have no implementation of a sales tax in a tourism town that brings in hundreds and 200,000s of people every year we could help.
Yep.
We're providing them entertainment, but we're getting nothing back for it because they're tearing up our streets. They're dumping their trash. They're dumping in their trash in our bins or wherever. Because you drive down Mark Twain Avenue or any place else, and you see the water bottles out the window instead of in a container, which goes someplace. So I guess my concern is that I don't want a property tax one way or the other, whether it's real or personal, for the simple fact that my cars aren't worth that much and my house is growing in value that I'm happy with. The problem comes in is that, we've got a motel and hotel tax. We've got a tourism tax. We've got all kinds of fees that we charge people to come in the door, but we can't use it to make our city better. And that's frustrating to me.
Yep.
Very frustrating. I live well within the city boundaries. I'm 4 blocks from the county line, but I'm still within the city boundaries. So the services I need are there. The problem comes in is 200,000 people or more coming into this area, using our streets, using our services, and we can't recapture that. So my question is, if you take away the sales tax, you take away franchise fees, which is fine, those are all different subjects and a different animal, but you can't turn around and provide a way that everybody is spared. I appreciate Rod's concern. I would not want to have that many square footage to be charged on. But at the same time, I've got all these other folks coming in and using services that we can't do anything about. There's got to be a mechanism in there other than just a flat tax. Now, the other question I have is this sunsetted? I'm not finding anything. So that 3820 or whatever is going to be there for as long as it's.
So part of the sunset, the issue is that we have fixed costs. In other words, if I'm going to go out for let's say we put this for 5 years, I'm going to hire people and then I'm going to let them know that I'm going to fire them at the end of the 5th year. I'm going to take that vehicle and I'm going to sell it at the end of the 5th year. I'm going to have to liquidate because we don't have it. And so those fixed costs, I don't think it's a wise thing to go.
Well, I'm not,
sunsetting.
and I'm just clarifying that for the simple fact is, the stormwater system's not going to go away in 5 years.
Agreed. Thank you.
And it's not going to be improved in 5 years to the point where it's going to satisfy anybody and everybody that comes through and inspects it, whether it's DNR, whether it's EPA, whether it's whoever. So we're going to have to maintain it. I understand that. The idea being is that a lot of people look at these things and say, okay, how long am I going to have to pay this? If you incorporate it into the budget, then it's pretty powerful.
Until it stops raining.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
I'm sorry.
Don't say
If I could ask you, on a scale of 1 to 100, where are you on the impervious area tax?
Well, we've got to do something to improve the system that we can't see. I'm 70 to 75% in favor of whatever we do. I just feel like we still need to find some way of equitably collecting from everybody that's using that service, directly or indirectly. And that's where my frustration comes from, is because our great attorney here has just pretty much cut the legs right out from under our ladder. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if like I said, we've had other situations where we've been able to recapture because the tourism system benefits from that motel and hotel tax and that tourism fee to generate brochures so that we can promote our town. But I think there's got to be some other way to help with our infrastructure.
Let us know when you come up with it.
Yeah.
Bob, what have you got?
Doesn't that infrastructure, doesn't that sunset in 3 years?
5.
4 or 5, well, 4 more.
4 more.
4 more.
Yeah.
Do we have that available to us in 4 years to go after?
No, because
it's a
per Missouri state law, a municipality can only assess a half-cent sales tax split between parks and stormwater. Currently, we have that half-cent sales tax exclusively for parks.
So the parks lock that in.
So in order to get it for stormwater, we would first have to unwind it for parks, so we'd have to do a vote for that. And even if we were to do the whole half cent, it would only raise 2 million out of the desired 4 million. Lawyer, if I said anything wrong, please jump in.
No, I think that's generally right. The only change would be if it does sunset and it wouldn't be renewed, then we could, then council could then put that back on the ballot and designate it to stormwater instead of parks.
The parks is open-ended.
Right.
So it's in perpetuity.
Right.
Bob, anything else?
No, I would
just. A scale of 1 to 100 on impervious. On a scale of 1 to 100.
I'm definitely in favor of the impervious, but I also have the concerns when I talk to people. A lot of them, like Rod, Carl, and Ted Fix on this committee, have some serious situations there that need to be addressed through some kind of qualification as you look at the individual situations. You know, I got a lot of land, or not a lot of land, but for a house, I got a lot of land, and, you know, my tax bill for the city of Hannibal is gonna double up, you know, and just, and I don't recognize that I, other than having pride in the city, use the storm sewers.
Okay. So scale of 1 to 100.
Uh-huh,
Scale of 1 to 100, where do you land on that impervious?
75.
Okay.
Impervious, yes.
Derwin, same questions.
Same question.
Go for
I'll
it.
put it 50-50 on that.
Okay.
But also, this boils down to equity. It all comes back to it. You're never going to get this passed knowing that there are individuals out there exempt from paying this. And I see all the workarounds we've been talking about. It's not going to happen until we find a way to get the other individuals who do not have to pay, I believe it's 40%. It's not going to happen. There's a reason why this hasn't happened in 10, 20, 40, 50, 60 years. We can go down the list. It's not going to happen. We can try to put it on the ballot in November to test it and see the number we get back. And then move forward to April and see where we're at, tweak it. But until that equity factor gets resolved, it's not going to happen. And there's been so many different ways we've looked at it, different options. I mean, everything's great, but it still comes back to the equity. Because I don't think Rod's on board with it.
Yeah,
You
how
know?
are we, the problem is how are we gonna get them in?
Exactly.
Yeah, do you
Because
have an idea?
Taxing them, according
Yeah.
to the Supreme Court, we have to tax them.
Exactly.
They're tax exempt.
Yes.
Because user fees are not an option.
Exactly.
So
I'm just being practical because I don't think
No, I understand.
we're ever going to convince the voters to run with this when they say, why am I paying this and so is not? Look at their building. They're using so much more than I am as far as, you know, the sewers, the streets and everything else. It's not going to happen. I just don't see it. So we luckily we have time to get it resolved, hopefully, worked out.
Do you have an idea how to get after the exempt?
No, I do not. I mean, because like I said, everything, like I said, I read your summary, and it's interesting how a couple of those judgments came down. Okay, did I agree with it? Well, okay, yeah, they're kind of not your summary, the judgments as a whole, and yeah, it's an uphill climb. It's going up Bird Street in the middle of winter with 6 inches of snow and without it being bladed. You're spinning your tires. You know, we'll get there eventually, but that's the main thing right now is coming up with that solution, which we have not come up with yet. But we have time. So,
thank you. Rod?
I don't know where to start. One of the big concerns I have is the businesses and industries, how hard this is going to hit them. I'm definitely not for impervious, not just for my personal reasons, because I pay $11,000 in property tax now. I'm going to have a 46% increase if this passes the way it's set today. But all these industries, I think you're going to really hurt them and cause issues with people wanting to come into this town. I don't know whether a formula can be redone with the parcel thing to where, I know everybody's worried about the people that don't have much money, and so am I, but I don't think you kill the people that provide jobs for these people that don't make a lot of money. I'm more for the parcel part. If you could increase the parcel to every individual and have maybe a residential and a commercial fee, have it be different, then you wouldn't have to worry about credits or anything like that. You wouldn't have to go through all this stuff, hire people for City Hall to deal with it and stuff like that. So I'm basically at a zero when it comes to impervious property.
Okay. Can I ask, based on what Rod said, a legal question? Is it, how does that go legally where you set one rate for residential and another rate for commercial?
We can do that legally. So there are a number of cities around Missouri that have different structures for different types of properties, different entities. We can do that. I think my recollection is Black and Veatch put numbers together on that. I think it may be on that first PowerPoint that we saw at our first official meeting, where they ran the numbers and gave some different types of options. So we may have, Black and Veatch may have done something like that for Hannibal already. But that is legal. We could do that.
And what you're talking about, Rod, whether residential or commercial is a flat rate?
Yeah, it'd be per parcel. Instead of General Mills having to pay 150, maybe they'd pay 80, and John Doe would pay another $100 more than what it's on the. I mean, there's a lot more individual people than there is in
Is there a
businesses.
multiplier factor for one of the options, there was a multiplier factor for industry and commercial? Do you remember what that was?
No. I don't know that it broke it down on that. Rod, anything else? Jay, you keep looking. We're gonna. Bill?
Rod said there's gonna be economic impact, to the industries and stuff, creating jobs, when you're forking out $100,000, but if you take away that cost, you're gonna have to add it to the other end. So you can take my $1,000 a year I would pay and increase it probably to $2,000 if they're gonna cut them, by that amount. So, yeah, it's a tough deal. There's the other, I guess, once you get money flow going in, the only way to get other people to pay is through grants type of situation, and would be the other source where you get federal and state money involved, where other people would actually pay
Matching funds.
Type of deal. It's only positive end of it I can see is once you get it started, you'd have the mechanism to go after grants. I'm about 50-50 on the impervious.
One thing, one more thing on impervious is that all of the storm water issues, I think, are probably from Mark Twain or Highway 61 towards downtown. And most of those people downtown don't have driveways. They park their cars on the street, so they're impervious properties. I bet most of those people ain't gonna have a $150 bill compared to people that are further out that got driveways and subdivision stuff. So when you say yours will go up that much,
This is kind of where you're at now.
I don't know that it would if you could come up with a per parcel that's fair.
If you get another formula, it'd be different. By no means, but and that area you're talking about, being working here for 30-some years, that whole area is impervious.
Yeah.
So you go up there and drill a hole, you ain't get 6 inches in the ground. A lot of them areas, that's total runoff. You may have grass on the top. There ain't gonna be no saturation.
Larry. Since we've been doing this, I've been leaning towards impervious the whole time. I guess that's where I'm currently at, but I'm open to listening to another option on partials, a partial rate for commercial and a different one for residential. As long as I can see that it's equitable. Initially, it just didn't seem right, but I mean, I hear where Rod's coming from and others that have property, a large property. Unless the other thing would be whether or not we consider an upper limit to any landowner. I don't know how we would do that or how legal it is. But so currently I'm leaning toward impervious, but I'm open to listening to other option. And I'm also, based on what the attorney has said, I'm now leaning toward an April election. Gives us some more time. It'll get more voters out there on more issues. It may give us a greater potential of a yes vote, more yeses than nos. And as long as we can keep our brothers on the city council from putting anything else on until we get this well established. I know they've got issues like salaries for fire and police after last night's meeting, but this is an issue that's been ignored for far too long and needs to be dealt with.
Thank you.
And it is a city problem. It is not a Board of Public Works problem. It's a city problem.
All right. Jay, you're in the middle of it. You want me to go?
I see each bucket, but I'm not seeing a comparison between each bucket by commercial versus residential and that type of stuff. I second the April proposal. I think that gives us a fair chance to educate and to come up with possibly other options. Originally, I was for the impervious as well, but once do some math and things like that, it's very challenging for me to move forward without doing some other calculations to say that's where General Mills would stand based upon the data that we have today. If no credits are allowed or things like that in the future, my fear is that credits are a discussion after the vote. So I'd feel more comfortable knowing what happens before the vote to help support that. General Mills will not have a vote. We do have people within the residential or the community. We definitely want to support it and support knowing that we've got to do something. I'm just not sure I understand what something is right this second now.
Okay, now I asked Rod what he felt that ceiling should be or he'd be comfortable with. Do I dare ask you what would be a comfortable number that General Mills would be comfortable with?
Well, anything above 0 is uncomfortable.
Understood.
So, if we're around 70 to 80,000, that's a little bit more palatable and easier to come up with solutions to solving.
Okay.
Versus the 150.
Okay.
Page 40 is what you're looking for.
I was close. Missed it though.
Okay. Michelle?
I don't know. I also had been leaning towards impervious area. Again, it's just, you do what you know, and my side of town is, I understand your pain, Mo. I get that. I really do. And I don't know. I mean, we talked about caps on other variations. So, maybe something can be discussed. I know you don't want me to say this because I know you got your $4 million, and I get that that's the number and that's what we're striving for. But I would think at this point in time, half or 3/4 of that would be better than nothing. Surely DNR would accept that, hey, we've at least started and we've at least got funding and we've at least, they do care, actually. They do. It's, I'm just saying that because if we do put credits in place, if we do put caps in place, if we do, and we fall short of the 4 million, the property owners in the 4th ward or any ward really to try to make up the difference isn't going to work. Right. I mean, so are we going to be happy with 3 million instead of 4 million? I mean, will we make 3 million work instead of 4 million, or is it all or nothing? I mean, you got to talk to people and tell them what we're doing, but there's also got to be there's no cookie cutter approach, I mean, to anything, and you're not gonna get it with this either. Now, what that looks like, unfortunately, I don't know. As far as a residential, strictly residential property, I think impervious area is the way to go. Now, how we would separate residential and non-residential, I don't know what that would look like. So, but I certainly think it needs to be considered.
$36.
So, that's all.
What
I-
percent, what percent, 1 to 100 on impervious?
For residential, it would be high. For
I'm saying, your opinion, I mean,
all over 100%, the whole town, 50-50 maybe.
Okay.
All right,
Jay, I didn't ask you your percent there on the,
Everything's based on 500 square feet. I got that one.
40. Okay. Andrea,
So I'm going to apologize in advance because I have like random notes everywhere. So I'm going to seem very all over the place. But I do have a quick question about the MS4 permit. Where, like,
Stays
the
the same.
permit,
Doesn't matter.
the stormwater management plan that's online, is that the most recent? Or like,
And it
because it's still from 2018?
excludes it.
yeah, we haven't put any more, we haven't put any more funds into.
And so you guys had a recent inspection, right?
We did.
Have you shared that with us? I'm sorry. Or have we just not received, have you guys not received it back? I'm just curious, like when we talk about MS4 implications, what do those look like in the near future? Is that information that we will be able to say, you know, these are the things that the state is coming in and saying, we absolutely have to do this, and this is the amount of money it's going to cost us?
We did get another inspection, and most everything failed because we haven't, the
Is there a
education was still
number
there and something.
associated, like fines or?
There was no
anything
fines
at this
as of
point?
yet.
It was associated
The
with
number
the,
of individuals
cities.
he paid
the
per year.
Commercial and industrial.
during construction,
That would be their
erosion
amount.
control stuff.
Okay.
And so it was
So like site
stuff that can be done
inspections?
through
That's annual.
spreadsheets, city hall, and the permitting process.
Hmm?
And so
I would
they
jump on the
implemented
400.
the tracking process
In
there.
industrial.
Okay.
And it
Jump
used
on that.
DNR for the time being, but it was again, only for that one item.
Sure.
I mean, he talked about $50,000.
Thank you. So the other, and these are just kind of statements, my opinion, where I'm coming from, and I might come off as just hopelessly optimistic. I guess that's in my nature, but I think this is a community pride thing, and you know, we talk about sales tax and how let's have our visitors pay for this. But I live here and I use these roads every single day. And everyone in our community does that. And like, I think that one, not necessarily positive, but lesson learned in the fact that we haven't done anything for decades is that we can look around the nation and see what they are doing. And it's most widely practiced to do impervious area. And that is what has proven to be equitable, the most equitable. And I said this the first meeting, like, I care so much about this community and businesses, and I respect our businesses. Like, super random side note, but my mom's worked at General Mills for 20 years, and I shop at Aldi, but if General Mills has a version of it, I will go to a different store just to buy that because I love General Mills. So I don't want to sound like I'm trying to like punish General Mills because they have this impacts them. In fact, when I worked here, I looked because I was curious about General Mills plants and where they're located and if there's a stormwater fee there. And I don't remember that because it was like, years ago. So I apologize, but I think Kansas City for certain is one. And
Joplin's the other one.
that number is a huge impact, like to General Mills funds. But then the other side is when you look at economic development, I've sat in, and I am by far, I'm not an expert on this, but I've sat in when businesses come and there's stakeholders at the group. You've got Board of Public Works, the city, the chamber, the school district, because businesses come in and they want to make sure that we have a strong school system. They want to make sure that ultimately they have strong infrastructure. And when we have infrastructure that is being taken care of, that's what businesses are looking for. Yes, it's a major financial impact, but also it shows that we are a community prioritizing our infrastructure. So With all of that being said, $4 million is a lot of money. And I understand completely where that number comes from, how, you know, the operations and maintenance and capital projects, but also if we're going to pass something, we really need to take a serious look at that fee. You know, I know the last ballot measure was $1.39 or whatever it was, all the way up to $3.20. Like, that's a huge jump because of nonprofits not paying. And I recognize that because nonprofits can't pay, that we still need $4 million. But I don't think that that should penalize the rest. So until the state of Missouri essentially allows it to be a fee structure, maybe we have to reduce that number and have a smaller budget and show that we're trying to be equitable. So I am 100% in support of impervious area, but I also feel that if this is going to be passed, we need to show our businesses and all individuals that while this is the most equitable and this is what we need, this is what we're asking for, build trust and see what the future holds for future ballot measures. I think that's it.
Well, that's Colin.
I don't really know where to start. If I'm being completely honest, a personal property tax bill of $836 a month for 3 acres of land seems a little bit high. All of the area that I'm talking about is the 3 acres that is impervious. By the square footage, just directing it straight down, I would be asked to pay $836 a month for 3 acres of impervious. That is a lot of money. My business can't absorb an extra $1,000 in bills to a utility. It's unlikely for me personally to want to vote for this. As it stands with that rate, 3 acres costs me $836 a month. I can't increase my square footage price on my glass by $1 a product because there's not that many pennies in my budget. I'm like, personally, I don't want to vote for this as it sits right now. So if we can come up with some different language where we can actually offer breaks to businesses who are employing, I mean, how many people does General Mills employ?
900.
1,200. 1,200. I mean, I personally don't want to pay $836 for my 3 acres of impervious land. If maybe you could have a commercial. Yeah.
There's gotta be a way to separate out the commercial and the residential. Still have commercial pay. I mean, it's gonna be larger no matter what because you've got larger area.
Right.
But it shouldn't kill your business to do it.
Would it be, I'm just thinking like electricity. If when you use a certain amount, the rate goes down after that. I mean.
Right, but that's
like a lot of.
I actually
math when it
have
comes
3
to
acres of impervious area. Like, I added all of the.
Colin, just curious, are you talking storage units, your office?
Storage
rentals?
units, office,
Okay.
the paved areas, the gravel areas.
Okay.
I really only have a patch like this big of grass. In reality, that is what I would be asked to pay every month from my business. And that would be 3 times the amount of any utility bill that we get.
Right.
On the Black and Beach presentation that we got, the overhead, paper slides, page 40, it talks of the per partial tax rate. It talks the size of the property, I guess. You got property size and then you got annual charge.
This doesn't go property size here.
Oh, that's
So
That's the GA, that's gross.
$10,000.
The per partial tax rate for three kinds of residency, you got 1, 2, 3, is all 429.98. And for commercial, it's 2149.90. Now, is that, how are we defining per parcel? Is it by acreage? By ownership?
No, gross area is by square footage.
Yeah.
Per parcel
Per parcel.
is, my understanding was,
I think it's due
okay,
to
like
zoning.
I
is
have
where-
2 lots. I've got the 89 by 99 that my house sits on, and I've got a little 66 by 66 lot next to me that's nothing's on it. So I would pay, if we did it per parcel, I would pay $858 annually, because I'd pay the.
Per parcel.
Yeah, well, no, I'd pay the, sorry, I looked at the math wrong. It'd be $429.98 per parcel. So I have 2 parcels. One I can't do nothing with, and one my house sits on. So I'd be paying over $860.
But my question has to do with per parcel.
Yeah.
Rob's got X amount of acreage. That's
So
a
how
parcel.
many? Yeah,
Correct.
that would be
And
one
she's
parcel.
got 2 lots.
It's based on county parcel
it's
drawings.
survey,
It's just,
yeah.
it's a survey.
Yeah.
It's just a line drawn on the map.
However,
And that's
it was
why
surveyed out.
when they talk about equity, it has the least amount of equity simply because a residential parcel is a residential parcel. A commercial parcel is commercial. If Rod, doesn't matter what size, he's got one parcel, he's gonna pay the $475. You've got one parcel, you're $475. Whatever the number is, I don't have.
How's that work on the commercial end? You got the,
It's in this scenario, per parcel, it was all exactly the same. It was the gross area where I think there was a multiplier for commercial and industrial, and I believe that was a 5.
you're saying the commercial and industrial would only pay 2,149 a year?
Yep.
That would be a low number for them compared to what.
Right.
And that number could be increased and the
But
other one
that's-
lower.
But how many parcels
that's-
does General Mills have?
But that's 30,000 square foot
Right,
for gross.
right.
Oh, 30,000.
So that's based upon 30,000 square foot,
Okay,
right?
that's a,
For the gross area,
For the gross area.
not for per parcel. Per
Parcel.
parcel is just how it was surveyed out. So like if General Mills started with their original building and then bought another section, that would be 2.
And they have the annex, that's a separate piece
Right.
of property.
yeah, but still you're way under what he's talking about.
Correct.
It's just a per parcel,
Yeah.
right off the map.
Then, yeah, on the other side, then everybody else is paying for it.
Right.
So you're shifting cost one way or the other. All right. Is there any
Is
other?
there any way to use a combination of them? Like, could you do impervious area for residential and a different system for commercial and industrial?
I honestly feel like that takes away that equability factor of it. This is gonna sound, I don't want it to sound like I don't respect everyone's opinions, but to truly be equitable is to treat everyone the exact same, residential or commercial. Does that make sense? I feel like the best way, if we want to be equitable, is that we reduce the rate. Like we make a smaller budget. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there for you guys.
Well, the flip side of that is you got 2 property owners, and one really takes pride in their property, and they've kept their house up and built a garage and a nice driveway and some steps down the hill, and they're getting charged for all of that. And the guy that doesn't give a crap what his house looks like, and he might mow the grass once a month, has the only impervious property on his lot is the house. And so, I mean, how equitable is that really? Because you get to a point where you feel like the more improvements, which is what Rod's point is ultimately, the more improvements you make, the more tax you have to pay for that.
When you start coming up and creating rates, which is what we're doing, we're creating a rate for this stormwater fee. The biggest thing I've had to be able to teach people is it's just got to be fair.
Right.
And it's gonna hurt everybody equally. It's just not fun. And so,
But is not
It's-
some
it's-
sort of a
so that
tiered
equity-
system fair? Is,
none of them
I
are
mean,
per-
I'm asking, I don't know.
the perfect rate is to give every single person their own.
They're what?
To give everybody their own rate.
Special.
Everybody's gotta have their own rate, and it's impossible.
Well, I understand that.
And so we've got, so again, you come back to this system, some way of getting a rate that's as fair as, and we've used the word equitable as absolutely possible.
So even those numbers that I gave you, if I was just doing 40% of that, it would still be a $300 month bill to me,
Understood?
which is higher than my electric. It's higher than my sewer, and
That you're paying the board today?
Yeah.
That you're paying the board today?
yeah, it's higher than
So
what I'm
thinking
paying.
outside the box, what opportunities when we talk about credits? Not saying stormwater credits, but is there credits on other utilities that help offset that monthly charge?
Right now, we don't. We would not have, again, we come back to the accounting responsibilities. We run three utilities, and we don't commingle those revenues. We cannot do that. Same with the stormwater. We can't commingle what we're doing with stormwater. Stormwater has to take and run itself
As a
with that
committee,
fund.
we're actually authorizing Board of Public Works to create a whole utility, so it has to be a completely separate bill. So
And they
Is it gonna
all
be collected
four
on the
have to
taxes?
stand alone.
Yeah.
I just assumed that. Is it gonna be collected on the taxes or?
Yes,
Okay.
taxes. This is a tax. This will go, so ultimately, we give it to the county. The county's gonna collect it from you on your tax bill from the county. They get it, they give it to the city, city gives it to us. That's who's gonna be touching this money as it goes. Jay, I think you had a comment. Did you have another comment? You were-
That's what I was
Okay.
talking about, other leveraging other credits somewhere else.
You guys don't mind, I got two things real quick. So even though it's not technically assessed through your real property tax, it is collected on your property tax bill.
Yes.
So, I mean, from a perception point of view, it is an increase in your real property tax.
That's how people will see it, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I mean, that's how I see it. It's just the simplest to explain. And then, Michelle, I think you might have made this point at the last meeting too about potentially being punished for improvements. And maybe I'm wrong about this, but if you improve your property, the assessed value is going to go up anyways.
they haven't reassessed it for a long time though. So
But-
they don't actually do reassess.
Every 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. So,
They're
like,
required by state statutes to
Yes.
reassess every 2 years.
yeah,
You get property tax for the improvement plus the.
Right.
Yeah, so-
now you'd be double taxed in a sense.
But it doesn't.
yeah. And I mean, but it's going to go up anyways, is what I'm trying to get at, because when you increase your property value, your property taxes go up. So that's just an observation I made. Yeah, but you still get double taxed.
So I'm afraid we've gone around the room. If anybody have any else, we've got a lot out there. What I have for takeaway, I've got 3 action items that I would like to bring back to you. Number one, we need to flesh out the $4 million. You need to see a 5-year plan, 10-year plan of what we're going to do with that money, why we need it, where it's going, just what that $4 million is for. Okay, and we can do that. Number 2, we want to talk about caps. What I'd like to do is we'll go back and we'll look at what happens if we put a $1,000 cap. And what will happen is we'll have to take and put that $1,000 cap on, and then say, where does that we're missing has to be put back in to the base to collect, again, shooting for that 4. I'll look at a $1,000 cap, a $2,000 cap, and a $3,000 cap. Okay? So that's what I think we can do that. Thirdly, I will look at what if we take and have an industrial rate, if we have a commercial rate, if we have a residential rate.
Okay.
And just take, again, kind of break that up. Maybe we can put a couple of different numbers in there to see if we can balance that out and just see what those numbers might come up with. Again, fairness is a fantastic thing. We can throw the dartboard at, but if those are the three things that I believe that we've discussed, that I've heard from you, that I think we can put pencil to paper and come back with those
Can
numbers.
I make,
And, okay, thank you. And his point is, what about credits? And I think the best I can do is take a look at maybe what some other communities are doing for credits and see what they've got and maybe share that. And if any of you want to do your homework and find some credits of what, maybe that's what I'll do. Why don't you as a committee, please take a look at what credits are out there that might be of any interest or value to you of what other community could.
I'll pipe in just a little bit. So you take a look at Kansas City. They've got, I think as far as my research goes, the most robust credit system. So take a look at that and see what you think about it. It's all pretty well set out in their city ordinances. So Kansas City has one. Columbia may have another set, so you could take a look at. Those are a couple examples. I may be wrong on Columbia, but those are Kansas City for sure would be a good starting point to look at on credits.
Now, I'm going to ask one more time, a quick vote. The April election. Anybody here still want to stick with the November election?
Make a motion, we move to April.
Yeah, I second.
Got a motion second. Everybody agree with April?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good enough. We're shooting for the April. That gives us some breathing room.
we just need the time.
Agreed.
We're
I
not-
think we'd be
We're not
very,
ready to put ballot language together.
very premature for that.
This is also really early, but I like when it comes to the proposition, and I know you guys have it labeled Proposition S. I don't know like what the parameters on that, but I think I'm thinking strategy, and I'm thinking something like if we could change that, and it could be like something like sustainable stormwater solution proposition or something like the SSS, like something like that. So I just putting that out there.
The SS was a bad thing a long time ago.
Well, I'm throwing that out there, but I'm just thinking like strategy, like we had PopS already, and we know that it didn't pass. So like maybe
And
I don't
when
even know
people see it
where-
on the signs, instead of going, Proposition X,
right, like
they'll go,
sustainable
oh, hey,
stormwater solution. Yeah, like, and
That's-
maybe we stick with PopS, but like anyway, just throwing that out there.
I'm going to say that the mind can only understand what the end can endure, and we've been enduring for quite a while now. So I would simply, here's some homework for you. Again, Alex has great experience with this, but this is talking about the committee. Once we've come up with where we're headed, we're going to, as a committee, please look at this and what we need to do. We can get some assistance with funding, helping this move forward. It will not come from the Board of Public Works. It will not come from the city, but we'll have individuals, whatever, be able to contribute to make that happen. But please look at that. Do you have anything you to add for committee information?
Not really. I think once we get to a point where we develop some kind of consensus about what we would like to put on the ballot, then we can start talking more about the political strategy side of things. And because as you all know, and as Darren has talked about, like the Board of Public Works cannot run that campaign. It cannot use public funds to advocate in support of whatever we call this proposition. There will need to be a separate campaign committee formed that is very much separate and apart from the board or the city, that hopefully some of you all will want to be engaged on the campaign side as well.
But
I don't think we're to that point
told
yet.
If we find a neutral place, not a city property, to have an educational meeting, the board can come and educate.
Yes.
And they can say, this is what'll happen if it passes, what we propose passes, and this is what'll happen if what we propose fails. You just can't. Are you guys?
Yeah, so
I'm absolutely willing to do that. We're planning on doing exactly that. Thank you.
right. So it's a bit of a fine line between advocacy and information purposes, but that is absolutely correct. Like the board can go and say, here's what the situation is, here's the need.
Told that
They can do that.
building, utilities, paper, ink, everything else is our dollar, as long as they just come talk.
Right. They can't, as long as they don't expend funds and they're just providing information. We're good to go.
Okay.
Bill, haven't picked on you yet. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just listening. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Neil.
Part of something to reach out to is the Board of Realtors. They do have funding for things like this, that, they'll help pay for posters and things of this nature also.
Thank you.
As a council member, I absolutely cannot advocate for this to
Got you.
go.
Conflict of interest.
Yep.
You got it.
But we'll be glad to take your money.
Thank you for your support. Is there anything else for the greater good of all? Hey, did you hear that Hawaii actually took and have outlawed loud laughter?
You're kidding. Hawaii?
Yeah, it has to be a low ha.
Next meeting? Next meeting, Darren. Next meeting.
Why am I the way I am?
Next,
Because it's fun.
recommendation for next meeting.
2 weeks from now,
2 weeks.
15th.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
Anybody?
I'm letting everybody know that I cannot be here on the 15th, and I cannot be here on the 22nd.
Just going to Ecuador, making a difference.
Mission trip.
I love it.
Awesome, that sounds cool.
I also will be in North Carolina, Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia on the 15th. Yeah, my calendar knows where I'm going.
Wherever it is.
I'm out of town on the 15th.
Okay,
29th better?
is the 29th better?
I could do the 29th.
Let's see if I'm gonna be.
That's a long way off.
It gives you more time as far as
It
collecting the
gives,
data.
yeah, I was gonna say, it does give me a little breather that we can put this together a little better.
29th?
I can do it.
I can't
29th.
think what it is.
Let's do the 29th, and even if I'm not here, we'll have the information here, and
Okay.
I'm gonna have Matt Munslinger run it for me if I'm not here.
Put your vacation time in now.
That's right. 29th it is, we will have emails out to remind.
Okay,
And
6
put it
p.m.
on your calendar. 6 p.m.
Awesome.
All right.